speaking of movies, though, we want to talk about your film, The Sadness.
Yeah, I made one.
You made one, yeah. And good evening. I know it's late there. I appreciate you taking time to talk about it because I watched it, and yeah, um, I dug this film quite a bit, man.
Thanks.
It made the jaw drop because it's been a while since we've gotten a film like this. So why don't we start off? Let my listeners know just a little bit, in your words, a bit what The Sadness is about.
It's about a virus that turns people into um, like sex crazed, uh, 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 homicidal sadists, essentially, and and it's about sort of like the beginning of this sort of stage of the pandemic of this particular pandemic in the universe of this film, and we just follow these two characters as they kind of just deal with the first few hours of this situation that they find themselves stuck in. So that's what it's about.
Now, you wrote and directed it, and I imagine you were inspired by real life events. Is that where this idea spawned from, or did you have this sitting around for a while before we got the pandemic?
No, well, no. I mean, it came like I got asked to write this movie. I was like commissioned to write this movie because we had the opportunity to make a movie in Taiwan because the means to make a movie were available, and
Sure.
the rest of the world was pretty much shut down, like locked down, and productions are pushed back or whatever. But in Taiwan, everything was open, and I just happened to find myself in a position where it's kind of like if you want to make a movie, we can do it now. And I was like, okay, well, is there anything that any request? What kind of movie do you want me to make? And
Yeah.
they figured like it probably is best to make a pandemic movie because this situation is going to be relevant, probably for a while.
Right.
And it's what people want to be watching right now. It's what's on people's minds. So let's do it kind of like a zombie movie, I guess. And I said, okay, well, all right, let's do that. So I just wrote it, and I thought I knew what the budget was going to be, not terribly robust. So we talked a little bit about it, and I said, well, what if we make it like really like vulgar and just try to and obscene and kind of try to push boundaries and stuff, because we don't have we're not sort of beholden to the whatever, like rating. Like there's not really like the ratings board doesn't really
Sure.
factor into like our factor into sort of what we're doing here. Like in Taiwan, they would give us an 18 plus, which is essentially the equivalent of an NC-17.
Sure.
And then and people, the people who are interested in that will go see it, and that's it. Because initially it was just like supposed to be like a, like if we make any money off this thing, it's going to be from the Taiwanese box office.
Sure.
So it was all just kind of designed with that in mind. It wasn't really designed to kind of go overseas and to do all the festival stuff. Like it was just designed to kind of make money here in Taiwan, which it didn't do. But the thing is that from everyone else's who was involved perspective, that's what it was designed to do. But
Sure.
I was actually making it to have kind of international appeal. Like that was my secret objective. I was like, because I mean, this kind of movie is not a terribly popular, like sort of kind of movie, as far as the Taiwanese general audience is concerned. Like if we're doing a horror movie, it makes a lot more sense to do a supernatural movie or something, or like some kind of something based on an urban legend or some kind of found footage thing or whatever. But to do something like this and this kind of level of gore and violence, and and stuff and vulgarity is not terribly like there's not really any precedent for it. So we were really trying to do something new, but I don't know, it just kind of went down the way it went down. And when I look back on it, I'm kind of just like how did that even happen? Like how did we do that? But it got done, and now it's out there and everyone's seeing it. So
yeah, and that was my question on some of those things, is how exactly you did it, because I was some of the stuff that you have going on here. One, I love the fact that you seem to just go for it with every scene. Was because I mean that train scene blew me away, the train scene, but I think that was also a very scary scene because did you intentionally work some real life situations into this and just amp it up, because the guy just pulling out a knife and starting to stab people, that's happened. So I mean, were you going for kind of a little bit of touching reality and not just keeping it contained into this surreal, excessively gory world?
Well, yeah, I mean that's how you make something actually like effective and
Sure.
and scary, really. But I mean, I mean, it's just another like kind of thing that like it's like it's funny because it's like every act of violence that you see in a film, like has probably happened somewhere.
Sure.
Like I mean, there's all kinds of films where some kid gets abducted in the street and gets locked in a room and tortured, or like I mean, there's tons of movies that are about war and and that's happened once or twice.
Yeah, just a few.
And then it's like, well, yeah, with a thing on the train. I mean, it's so funny. Like I don't actually understand why certain lines get drawn in the sand. Like remember that movie that came out maybe like a year or two ago? It was called Run, Hide, Fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like this is in bad taste. It's about a school shooting and we shouldn't be talking about that, and it's just like, but why? Or it should be handled in a more tasteful way. Like it shouldn't just be like a Die Hard movie, but with school shooting backdrop or whatever. And it's just like, I've yet to hear a good explanation as to why that's not an appropriate thing to do. But if I think about it myself, it probably has to do with just the fact that it's such a politically loaded topic, and it ties into sort of like people use it, like these things happen, and then people just use them as talking points to push their own political agenda as to why there should be why gun laws should be altered in one way or another, or why we should have more guns or less guns and stuff. So that's sort of why it becomes like a touchy topic. But with the issue of like a random train attack, I don't know. I just like it's happened in Taiwan before. There was one that happened in like 2017 that was widely publicized, and it, got everyone all shaken up. And for a while, you'd ride the subway, and there'd be like a guy like on like a guard on the subway with like a machine gun. Like
wow,
yeah. Which didn't make any sense to me because it's like a machine gun's not a very good weapon to have in a closed space because it has like a long barrel gun. Like someone can just grab the barrel like very easily. It makes a lot more sense to have a handgun, but you can tell it's just optics. It's like everyone's like, oh damn, look at that guy with the machine gun. But the government's really doing something. But anyways, I just don't fucking care, honestly. Like I just like I just wanted to make like a movie where people would pay attention to it and have a strong reaction to it. And I mean, if the only argument is kind of like, like, oh, think about the victims of the most recent train attack that happened in the world, because there was one that's happened fairly recently in Japan. There was the one in New York where the guy had those smoke bombs or whatever, the grenades. Where are you right now in the world?
I am in the middle of Wisconsin. So so pretty much farthest from anything.
yeah. But I mean, that's like, you're in the States anyhow. And like, you're right in the middle of of all of these conversations about why something's okay and why another thing isn't. But I guess the point that I'm just trying to make is that like, if the only argument is just sort of like, you know, you're not being sensitive enough to the victims of whatever attack, it's like, well, then just don't. Violent movies should be off limits, you know, in like across the board. Violence just shouldn't be talked about ever, unless it's you know, like science fiction, fantasy violence, or or animation, or whatever, you know, or if it's taken so far out of reality that it doesn't have any impact, and it's just, I don't know. I don't really have any good answer. I guess like I said, like I'm just trying to make a movie that has maximum sort of like, how do you say that? Like just kind of
effect,
maximum effect, just to kind of stand up out of the crowd and just try to get people talking, and I guess that's my shrewd answer. You know, I'm just trying to get noticed, trying to make a name for myself as a director, and trying to get that sort of debut happening in a big way, and compounded by the fact that it was a small budget, trying to come up with you know, just ways to kind of make that budget work for me.
And you do very well in making the budget work, because I've watched a lot of small budget, micro budget, you know, lower budget films, and it doesn't have that look at all to it. When I looked at it, it didn't feel like it was a lower budget. I mean, the use of practical effects everywhere, the way you shot some things. So I mean, at least it doesn't look like the budget that it may have been.
Well, you know, a lot of why the film looks so, like, I look at the film and I'm just like, oh man, I love how it looks, like, it, because it all has to do with just it all has to do with, first of all, I had a exceptional cinematographer by the name of Jie Li Bai, and he's just this guy who has never been the DP before on a film, but he's always been like just camera operator, and we finally gave him a shot to be the boss of that department. And it's one of those things where it's like, you knew if you just let him loose, he'd do a good job, and he did. And his team is great, the focus puller, and sort of by extension the lighting team and all them, like, just because that's what it's all about, is just lighting stuff, and having a really good sense of you know, how the camera's kind of going to move through a scene, and all that sort of stuff, you know, photography related stuff. I'm not very good with that kind of stuff, but I did storyboard the whole film, and he looked at those storyboards and followed them very closely, or at least was able to fall back on them when he had questions. And the other thing too is that we shot it on we shot it on Red Monstro camera, so very, like, you know, good quality camera. We shot the raw footage in 8K, and then downsized it to 4K for the final one. And then, but, like, I mean, resolution is not a big deal, like, you know, like every phone has 4K,
right?
But it's all about, like, lenses. We had RE prime lenses, like a set of RE prime lenses, and they were again, I don't know a whole lot about that, but we had it set up so that, like, they were really easy to change. Like, he could very easily just be kind of like, I need this one or this one, whatever.
Sure.
And he's able just to switch them real fast. Some cameras, it's like, it takes a long time to reset and stuff. So just as far as, like, the camera department is concerned, we had, like, some guys who were, you know, hungry and we're waiting to do something really awesome. So you know, if I'm going to do another movie in Taiwan, you know, and they, like, let's say, for example, I have everybody all ready to shoot, you know, just for the sake of I have everyone all ready to shoot in August of this year, and then the cinematographer tells me that he can't because he's doing something else or whatever, like, the whole thing stops, because I want him, I need him to do. There's a lot of guys like that, actually, like, on this Sadness, lots of just people who are just like, I need to, like, for example, the composer also, Suchar, they're I would absolutely give them first look for anything I did. A couple actors, Wang Sichang, the businessman guy.
Oh,
I, I,
he was fantastic in this. So
yeah,
creepy.
like, I would love to give him an opportunity to show like his like kind of his I would love to write him something where he's like a hero, or like
Sure.
show his warmer side, or, you know, because I mean he actually is a real cool guy, and he can do a lot more than just be repulsive. So.
Well, but he was amazing at it. I mean, I didn't expect, you know, that type of character come out of this, and he was great as the I guess main baddie to you know to the storyline that you have with the female character Kat, who I really enjoyed her performance as well. Did you have people in mind already when you were after you wrote it, or when you were writing it, or was the casting done all after?
It was done all after. Like, I mean, yeah, it was just kind of like, you try to write stuff so that, like, you know, there's not really like a big selection of like affordable, skilled,
sure,
performers in Taiwan, because like a lot of them will like a lot of the best ones will get work elsewhere. Like they'll go to China and get paid like, you know, 10 times what they get paid here.
Sure.
A lot of the times, or like and also just because the industry here is smaller, there's just less competition, and like the less competition there is, obviously the less quality you're going to get, and the standard becomes less. So I was just trying to make like, you know, and there's also sort of this aspect too of the fact that I'm writing a movie that's the ultimate product is going to be in Mandarin Chinese, and it's not. I mean, my Chinese is not the best at all, but like, even if it was very good, it's not my mother language, so it's like you're not going to get that feeling. You know what I mean? You're not really going to get like the really good dialogue. So like I don't know, who's a writer who's got really good dialogue, like Charlie, like a Charlie Kaufman script or something,
right?
You know, so I just thought, okay, well, it should just be an action movie, an action horror movie, and so I just wrote it, and the characters are fairly surface level. I try to give them just enough so that they're, you know who they are and you know what they have to do, and some have more motivation than others, but I kept it pretty open. But just back to your question, we did all the casting afterwards, and in fact, we couldn't get kind of like, for example, Kat was actually supposed to be more of like an older character, like more of like a, you know, maybe like a early 30s, like Linda Hamilton, tougher kind of character. But then we changed. It was insisted upon that we make Jim younger, because we wanted to use this one actor that my one of the producers, Jeff, he was like, let's use this kid. He's got the face. He's going places. So I was like, okay, that's a foregone conclusion. But because of that, we had to make the Kat younger, because it's I mean, obviously it's not unheard of that a 20-year-old will date a 30-year-old, but it changes the whole the way everything works. And instead, like, now I was just like, let's just make it younger, Kat younger, and then you know, we'll just sort of change how a lot of these scenes work, where instead of her kind of like, you know, being sort of an action hero and like taking charge and knowing what she's doing, we'll make her just kind of, you know, just reacting and just, you know, surviving by sheer like luck and coincidence, and you know, that's basically it. And I find that probably was a better choice. There's a lot of stuff that happened during the shoot of The Sadness that was like, you know, something like, it's basically there was an accident, or like we couldn't do something, so we went another way. And when I think about, you know, how it would have gone if we had gone the way that it was originally planned, I'm so glad that we didn't do it that way.
Sure.
A lot of lucky stuff happened, but then obviously a lot of the stuff a lot of like the technical stuff was planned like the special effects, like a lot of the gore stuff, a lot of the set pieces, a lot of the way that the art department was working was all planned like months in advance. So that stuff was good, but a lot of the character stuff and the acting stuff, that was all, a lot of that was just kind of improvised and changed as we went along.
Well, I think it works well the way you approached it, especially with the cat character, because she still gets to be heroic yet felt a little bit more grounded. Like this is just a good person who's doing the best she can, and I think that helped connect it, at least with me, the character a lot more than say a Linda Hamilton, Terminator 2 Linda Hamilton, maybe Terminator 1 Linda, but
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast.
The TV show with Ron Perlman as Vincent.
But yeah, I liked her the cat's journey, as well as Jim, the different directions you took them, and how they do stay separate for most of the movie. And with this, what I liked is how you start off giving us just enough of them and then diving us right into the chaos, because I was kind of, with all the gore effects and special effects and it being an indie film, I was like, okay, we're going to probably get like half an hour, because you get that a lot, half hour, 40 minutes of setup, and then you get the trigger pulled, but you dive into it fairly quickly. And I appreciated that quite a bit, especially with that scene with the motorcycle. How, if you don't mind me asking, pulling back the veil, how did you do the balcony, or how did they manage to do the balcony jumper? The person who
it's just CG.
That was all CG, because it looked like part of it was a dummy. So I was just like, the inner cut. But that was one of the scenes that I really enjoyed. But did you want to just kind of dive people right into it right away? Because as you said, these are kind of surface level characters. And for pulling the trigger, did you kind of just get to the action right away? Was that the whole point?
That's exactly. I mean, you with a movie like this, an action horror, I don't see any reason not to try to give as much action and as much horror as you can, and I've seen films where there is, it's like it's an action horror or whatever, or an action or whatever, and then the people who make the film feel like, we're gonna be judged against sort of a rubric that is, people, I don't know, just people think that a film has to be a certain thing, there needs to be we need to have like Kat kind of like in the beginning, she goes into the bathroom and she's looking at a pregnancy test, and it's like, oh no,
right.
And then later on the phone, like we find out that Jim doesn't know, and then she tells him, and it's just this kind of, and it's just like, I don't like that, or and then maybe he has sort of like a revelation about sort of himself, and he's like, I'm gonna be a daddy, and it's like maybe just some bullshit thing like that. Like I just feel like that sort of stuff, like, and that's the kind of thing too that a lot of the people who like criticize the sadness for being for not having any character development, like that's the kind of like vapid bullshit that they want out of the sadness. Like if we did that, oh, now this is good, there's great character development, but the thing is, for me, is just like I'm in this just for like the sensation and for the spectacle, and for like the energy and the sort of also, to some way, in the way I see it, kind of like the honesty of a movie like this, where it's just like it's I've heard it, some people describe it as like a love letter to sort of gore films, or like trash cinema, or like maybe some of the movies of the late 80s and early 90s. And I think that's pretty accurate. Like I just wanted to make the kind of movie that I thought I would love to see, you know?
Right.
And that's about it. And as far as like the main characters are concerned, there's just enough there so like you kind of know who they are. Like you don't like I've heard also you know, people just sorry this like I'm fresh off of, like right now like a lot of people are seeing the film, so it's like
sure.
I'm occasionally I'll just look at a review or whatever, and some people are like you know, we don't even know what Kat's job is. It's like
we don't need to.
Yeah. Well, okay. She works at a company that sells motherboards.
Right.
Like if I said that, would it be a better movie? I just find like a lot of people who think they know so much about like storytelling or whatever. It's like they don't like, give me a break. You have no idea. Like if you tried to write anything, you've never written anything. You only know kind of like what you've heard on other YouTube videos. You know, like that's not that's basically what I find from all these things. But like for me, it's like The Sadness gives you about enough of these characters to know who they are, and the rest is just kind of like there, so you the viewer can be kind of like, you know, what would I do in this situation, you know? Like and I try to have them make good decisions or sort of smart decisions to some degree. You know, obviously some things have to be done to keep the plot kind of moving forward. Sure. Like for example, you know, if I saw a bunch of like young kids smashing their teacher's nuts against the basketball pole,
I just keep driving.
Yeah, I'd probably keep driving too, but at least I give an explanation.
Right.
Like,
yep.
Jim has sort of a sense of indignation, like these little fucking bastards. Like I'm gonna fucking teach them a lesson. They're just kids anyways. Fuck them. Yeah. So like, it I guess it, you know, the two characters, the two main characters are just kind of, they're just kind of coat hangers for you to kind of hang as an audience member. They're for you to hang your own coat on, and for you to kind of imagine yourself, what would I do, right? And then the businessman, I feel, is probably the one that has the most sort of like motivation. Like he has that thing in the beginning where he's trying to talk with Kat on the train, and then he is rejected by her, and you kind of see how hurt he is by that, you know. But it's sort of, at the same time, it's kind of like he's not in the right. He shouldn't.
No,
be doing
he is right.
You know? Like I mean, but there is you know, I've seen like, you know, like here in Taiwan, like they have sort of like this Taiwanese Reddit, and I've seen like entire like, you know, subreddit. Well, you know, it's not called Reddit. It's like, but it's the equivalent of like a subreddit, and the whole thing is just like, do you think Kat is being a bitch or not? You know, like that's the entire conversation. Wow. And it's just like, that's pretty funny. That's a funny thing to talk about, a funny discussion to have.
Yeah.
But anyways, like, as you know, his arc is sort of like, you know, getting the virus, and then sort of, you know, becoming the guy who he, you know, maybe always wished he could be, but was stifled by societal pressure, or maybe perhaps his own conscience even, you know, maybe he does have sort of he's not a full-on psychopath. But yeah, like for me, like the businessman character is really like the character that I care about the most in terms of like representing the sadness. And also like the MRT worker, the guy who has like the hentai on his phone, and Molly. I think Molly is also a great character too. Like but like the two sort of leads are really designed to be points of view, avatars, if you will, for the audience, and it's just about kind of trying to put the audience in their shoes. That's kind of the idea. And like I said before, just try to deliver as much like action and horror as possible, and surprising the audience, like kind of, you know, just sort of, if like, I'll show you this and I'll show you this, and then you think it's going to be this, but it's this instead, and then move on to another scene, and then like, oh, like I think I know what's going to happen here, and then I try to give you something else, you know. Like that's the way that I tried to do this movie. I just tried to make something that was just not boring at the very least. And
it's definitely not boring at all. You know, I was watching, just deciding where it was going to go next and just exactly what you were going to do. And so, and it just, my jaw did drop a couple of times going, did they just they went right there. Yep. Was there anything that that you came up with that you said, maybe we shouldn't put this in, or was all all the cards on the table?
No, like that, there was one thing that I wanted to do, where I wanted in the hospital, I wanted the infected to break into like an operating theater where a guy was having brain surgery. He's laying on the with his face against like the the table or whatever, and they have that latex sort of sheet that they've cut a hole in, and they have a piece of his skull out, and his brain is exposed. And I wanted an infected to come up and drop his pants and then take a shit inside of his brain, like into his exposed brain.
Yeah.
But then I told that to my two producers, and they were just like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And then I kind of started thinking like, it might be like too funny. Like it might, the tone of it might be too funny, but at the same time, like, wouldn't it be cool if I did that scene, but I actually I managed to frame it so the tone was just horrible, try to do it for if someone comes up to you and they're like hey Mark, I'm gonna fucking cut your dick off and feed it to your dog, you're kind of like, haha, you joker,
Yeah.
But if someone actually really is gonna do that and they mean it, it's scary, right?
No, it's scary. Yeah.
So that would be the goal, to do the brain turd bit. Just try to make people take it seriously.
Which that's what I was gonna actually lead to next, is the fact that how do you weigh? Is it the way you shot, or how challenging is it to make the excessive gore still effective and not come off too satirical? Because it kind of escalates as it goes along, as we go through the film, and it does get more and more, a bit more outrageous as the city goes further into chaos, and most of it still comes off as serious. I will say a couple of gimmicks did come off. I had me smiling because they were just almost too. But how much of a challenge is to try to find that balance?
Well, if we compare the sadness to one of those, let me think for a good example, something maybe Martyrs, or maybe even something like The Divide. Have you ever seen The Divide with the guy? No, what's the name of that fucking guy? That in Terminator 1, Michael Biehn.
Michael Biehn. Yeah, Michael Biehn. Yeah.
Michael Bihn's in it, and Rosanna Arquette's in it, and I think it is directed by one of those French guys. But I can't remember off the top of my head. It's not Alexandre Aja. It's maybe it's Gregory Levasseur or whatever. Or maybe, I don't know, I can't remember. But anyways, that's another movie that's really super hard and really leans into the sexual violence and is really trying to hurt the. A perfect example is our Gaspar Noé movies. There are some Japanese movies that are like that, Grotesque is maybe like that, where they're actually trying to harm the audience. The sadness is not really I've heard a lot of people be this stuff's really disturbing, but I was laughing, and it's well, then why is it disturbing? Is it disturbing? Right. You had a good time watching it. So why are you saying it's disturbing? Are you saying it's disturbing because of what some hypothetical person that is not you would think? Right. You know what I mean? What kind of thing is that to say? Just talk about what you feel. How about you feel? I'm not interested in your hypothetical person who thinks it's disturbing. So because to me, when I watch The Sadness, it is fun, but there is sort of a little bit of a bite to it as well. And because I do know what you mean. The people in The Sadness do suffer. And I think that's kind of maybe what I think is interesting, to do, as a filmmaker, to try to sort of ride the line between real horrific violence. Because it is horror, violence is terrible. It's the worst thing that, if you've ever experienced real violence, it's terrible and traumatic and it sucks. But then there's also this whole, just history and culture of like of all these films that we grew up with and that we love and that are violent as hell, and we, like, and we love them. They're fun, So, and I found, a lot of inspiration in Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead remake.
Oh yeah,
the 2013 one, because the way that the violence is handled there is very similar. Well, yeah, I guess so. It's pretty similar to like how it is in The Sadness, where it's like it's done seriously and it's done realistically, and the people in it are suffering, but you can tell that they go over the top in some certain ways. Like, for example, there's far too much blood in some places, and
right.
Or there's like things are kind of amped up just for the sensational effect or whatever, to maybe to achieve like a hyper reality or to go beyond just sheer realism. And I don't know, like kind of riding that line. I right from the beginning, I thought, I just found that idea to be interesting. I don't really know exactly what, like, what about it is like, I'm not really sure exactly what about it works, like in terms of psychology, but like it for some reason I just thought that would be the way to go with this film, is like because I'm not intending to hurt the audience, like the prolonged rape scene in Irreversible, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I mean, I love that film, and that scene is one of a good example of a rape scene in a film that is entirely necessary for that film to work properly. But yeah, I just wasn't doing that with The Sadness. I was trying to do something that felt like it was, like hardcore, and like something that like was impactful, but still something that when you left the theater, you'd be amped and you'd be with your friends, like holy shit, you remember that, like you do that part when that was fucking crazy, just getting excited, like having a good time at the movie theater, because I mean, like when I watch sort of flippant violence, like the violence that you see in something like I don't know, like maybe Zombieland, or like where it's just none of it matters at all, and like it's just like, yeah, whatever, like who cares, there's no emotional weight, there's no one really seems like they're suffering to me, or even just like in any, like in a like a Fast and the Furious movie or something, where it's just like, the violence in it is just completely like without sort of consequence as far as the audience is concerned. The audience doesn't have to feel bad about any of the violence. It's all justified. The guy who died was a jerk anyways, like, he slapped his girlfriend, so it's okay that he gets exploded or whatever, like, you know what I mean, like they set things up so that like the audience is on the moral high ground of being okay with him dying or being brutalized or whatever. So like, I don't know, that kind of stuff I guess is interesting. I just thought that I wanted to make a movie that kind of rides that line, and maybe kind of experiments a little bit with sort of like real violence and sort of the fantasy sort of horror violence that there's a long history of.
And you have that, especially I think the prime example, I keep coming back to it, but it's a sequence that I appreciate so much of what probably went into making it, that train scene, the extended train scene with everything going on and how we stay there for a while. How on one scene you're getting kind of serious to where they're dragging people and getting on top of them, and then you get someone stabbed and you have the 1,000 pounds of pressure blood spurt into the ceiling of the car, but then you go back to the seriousness, and I think you accomplished that fairly well with this, very well actually, with kind of jumping both of that, giving you just a little breather before you get back to more of the serious violence. And that had the effect on me. I like that because you're right. Some of those films are just so brutal that by the end of it, you feel exhausted, you feel beat down. You're like, oh man. Yeah, it's just like you don't want to talk about it to anyone. You're just like, I just feel horrible. And in this one, yeah, I was pumped at the end of it. Though I do wish I will say I wish it kind of would have ended a little bit differently, but that's just my personal taste. Because
how would you do it? How would you do it?
Well, no, I like it was just a very final scene. I guess I would have removed the sound effects of.
Oh, okay. No spoiler.
No spoiler. You know what I'm talking about. You added the sound effects at the end of what happens to a character at the very end, and I was like, I was kind of hoping it would be a little bit more, but it fit the movie. I will say it was just my personal taste that I just kind of wish that wasn't there, so I could live in the idea that it went better than it did.
Well, I'll tell you, it was louder in the mix originally, and I told the guy to put it lower in the mix. So
okay.
that's me trying to be a little bit, I don't know, nuanced or something.
Little nuanced.
Yeah.
No, but, and I think the quiet works. It quieter actually worked even more effectively than having it louder. So for sure.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Fuck, I don't know.
I'm just it still works. It was effective, but just me personally, because a lot of horror films seem to end a little bit with that tone, and it's one of those things where it's surprising if we actually get one that ends a little bit happier, but again, it didn't take away from the film. It's just personal taste.
Yeah. What's another what's like a horror film that you've seen recently that you really liked?
Well, I didn't. What did I enjoy recently? It's hard to say. I watched mostly indie stuff. I will say it was a few years ago though. Overlord. I enjoyed Overlord, and that ended in kind of a surprising way for me because of the way the rest of the film went. How it ended was kind of surprising to me in a good way, because that was like, oh, we actually have more people living than I thought there would be at the end.
Oh, come on. That movie, like you can tell just by like the scale of it and sort of the it's Kurt Russell's son. Is this Wyatt Russell?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Wyatt, so like why, like, I mean, that's the kind of movie where it's like you know that he's gonna like live at the end, or at the very least he's gonna do like the Josh Hartnett at the end of 30 Days of Night, where it's like he wins, but it's a bittersweet thing where at the very least he gets to spend like his death with his woman or whatever, like I don't know, to be honest, like the sort of the doom and gloom kind of ending is not as common as maybe you've stated earlier. Like they usually like sort of there's a win, but like there's a satisfaction at the end. Like like, oh, at least they kill or they stop the thing from happening, but the main characters still die. In the sadness, like in the sadness, I guess, like it sort of just there's no real wins that happen at all. I guess you just but you do get to at least see it resolve. But I mean, it's I guess it just depends on like it just depends on kind of like what you're looking for. Like a lot of the times, like I just saw did you see Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You want to talk about that? How'd you like that movie? We're just chatting now. How'd you like that movie?
I dug it. I dug it quite a bit at the end of it. I thought it was an interesting approach to what actually is the core subject of it. It surprised me because I'm watching along, because the way it was promoted was like just the gimmick of the multiverse, and when it first starts out, you're like, okay, and then when you get kind of the gist of what they're actually talking about, I'm like, wow, that was like a different approach to basically a relationship, a dynamic between parent and kid, and I was just like,
it felt really truthful to me, like in fact, like the ending of it, like it's the way the dialogue between like the mother and the daughter, like how they try to sort of give like a few sort of end, like you think it's going to be the ending, and then it kind of like it fails, like because of because it's true. Like
Right.
if your mother was, I don't want to spoil it, but like if your mother was, kind of tried to kind of stick up for you like that, you would, as a child, you'd be like, shut up, mom. Like you'd get embarrassed by her.
Yeah.
And then you're she's out in the parking lot and they're screaming at each other.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and then you think, okay, it's going to end like that. And it's a little bit more melancholy, but that's maybe a little more realistic. But then Michelle Yeoh comes back and she kind of fights back, and eventually you kind of meet somewhere in the middle. And I was just like, that's fucking great. Like this is the strength of this movie, is just how like empathetic and understanding of people that these filmmakers are, the Daniels, right? Or Daniels, they call themselves. And then, but the thing too is like, it's the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, if you end strong like that, then so everything is forgiven. Like you can have, I really do believe like the sort of the third quarter of that film, like I was just like, this is kind of grating on me a little bit. Like, it's, I haven't really seen a new idea introduced into this film. Like the beginning is just amazing. When it starts to get into sort of the fantasy stuff, it's just like, oh, I'm totally with this. And then it starts to kind of get into a place where you're just like, it's wearing a little thin on me here. They better do
something, right?
Exactly. They better do something. But then when they end on that strong, very human note, it's kind of just like all is forgiven. Mwah, everything looks great. I'm gonna walk out of this theater believing that I saw a good film, and be right. So it's funny. Like you really have to be thinking about how you're sending these fuckers home, when they leave the theater. And oftentimes that comes with sort of like a feeling of satisfaction. Whereas I feel like the sadness, the resolution is, by design kind of like disappointment, but like an aching disappointment. And I guess that's just for me when I watch it. I'm just like, I've heard criticism and stuff, and I watch it. I'm just like, that's the way that it feels right for me for this whole fucking thing to end. But
it felt right within the movie. That's why when I stated just personal taste, because as far as the movie goes, it fit perfectly, especially with the setup and the commentary you make about the government. Because I did notice that you worked in commentary in here, which for people who complain about either films being woke or films saying too much or this is getting political, I'm like, horror films especially have been a mouthpiece for commentary on social morality and the state of the real world for ages. People just don't notice it because they're usually too busy staring at the blood. But you work a great balance that in here. So for me, the ending here fit the movie. It just was my personal feeling, but as far as the movie, it was perfect. It fit because it made sense, especially when you get the dialogue with Kate earlier with the scientist, who I love on the dry erase board. In the back, it says "We're all fucked."
Oh yeah. I did that.
Did you?
Because of my shitty handwriting. Look at my the handwriting of a 6-year-old. Actually, just since you touched on it, a lot of the commentary, like in political or otherwise in the film, I think is a lot of people are like really do bring their own luggage to the film in that regard. And like, for example, I mean, we made this film like, it was written in like May of like 2020. Right. So, and as far as like, like I said to you before, like we improvised a lot of stuff, but that was a lot more of just sort of like the interpersonal stuff, or like how characters are behaving. But in terms of like what's actually being said, it didn't change a whole lot. And we had, if you think about the trajectory of like the pandemic and like how the conversation changes sort of like over the months, where it's like in the beginning it's kind of like where did the virus come from? You know, was
Right.
it manufactured in a lab, or like what the hell's going on? Whose fault is it? And then after a while, it's like, oh, okay, well now it's like vaccine
Right.
politics. You know, like, oh, the vaccine's going to kill you, or like, or this kind of thing. Like, and now it's just sort of like, okay, well, it's over now, and both sides, like both sides of the argument, both think that whatever course of action that they took, they were right to take.
Right.
It,
Yeah.
Well, we took care of it because of the vaccines. It's like, see, it never really was a problem. We didn't need the vaccine in the first place. Like, everyone leaves feeling like they did the right thing, and now we're just, I don't know, talking about I don't know, Will Smith slapping Chris Rock or whatever. Right. I don't know.
It's suddenly become the normal. It's like, it's not really a headline now.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess the point that I'm just trying to make is that the political aspect of the sadness. I've heard everything. I've heard people, at Q&As, people tell me that it's about this or that, the other thing, and I'm like, and I just give that answer. I'm just like, I think that I was always working in the service of, what's scary, or what's like, what's going to sort of push forward in terms of like the story, like the part with the government, like the head exploding and all that stuff. Spoiler.
I loved it. Yeah,
thanks. I'm surprised that hasn't been made into a GIF yet. It probably is. I'll look for that after. But the thing is like I just wanted to have a scene where it's just kind of like, okay, like the government, the government's on TV. They'll tell us what to do. Right. Like they'll have a plan. They'll have a contingency plan for this, and then just watch it like all fall apart, and then actually watch like the president of the country get murdered on live television, and then just like, ooh, like the we're not broadcasting anymore, emergency red screen show up on the TV, and then the horror of just kind of being like, okay, we're on our own now. There's no more government. Like the country is completely in free fall. That's literally all I wanted out of that scene. And the to sort of expound upon that is the fact that like that's not even how that kind of thing would go down in Taiwan. Like that, like it's super old fashioned looking. Like it looks like some sort of like maybe they would have done it like that in the 50s or something. But like, but I just wanted it to be, again, I wanted this to be something that everybody around the world could watch and understand. So I just kind of did something that was very like broad. And I didn't try to localize it too much. It's just more about like, this is the government. Okay, this is what they're doing. This is maybe how sort of an average of how different governments of different countries would address this thing, and the military's there or whatever. So it's actually pretty boneheaded in that regard. But like it's just all in service of an action horror film.
Sure.
So
yeah. Well,
that's it.
What I liked about that is the aftermath of that scene in the hospital lobby, how you had people who were acting almost like the infected, though they weren't infected, because the government now pretty much has, like you said, there is none. They've got no plan. And now the people are really scared. And then they start turning on each other in the lobby, yet they're not even infected. And it's showing you there's not a huge line between infected and not infected in this movie. At least that's the way it came across for me anyway.
Sure. I mean, like, but at least they're not trying to like,
murder,
assault each other.
That's true. At least they're not trying to stick things in orifices that normally shouldn't get stuck.
Yeah.
So, what was your favorite scene that you shot? Like one that you nailed, like you're like, damn, that was just, that was on the money for me. What did you have a particular scene or scenes that were favored for you?
Yeah. It's gonna probably not be the one that you think, but it's like the part at the very end where we see Kat start to cry, and then her crying becomes laughter, and I just loved seeing her give that performance. I just, I don't know. I'm not, something about just like, because so much, it's that thing I was saying before about like, you have to kind of end strong. And I knew that this was going to be like the end of the movie. And I needed that performance to just be strong. And, and she did it. And I mean, Regina is not a terribly experienced actress. Like, she had done a lot of commercials, and she also had, well, several commercials, and also she was a performer in sort of like an anthology film like that was made. I forget the name of it, but it was a small part in a segment in an anthology film. And so she wasn't very experienced. She's also very young, and she's also if I'm being honest, like she hasn't really like, she's kind of sheltered, like she hasn't really like led young, so she hasn't really done a lot. So there's not a lot of like, if you haven't led like a rich and full life, you don't have a lot to draw upon when you're trying to act, right? And so like I was just really happy that she was just able to kind of find that and to do it like that. Like that's actually the cool, because this is my first movie. Before this, I've only really done animation and stuff.
Right.
And I did some shorts, but even the shorts are very leaning heavy into the animation. But like working with actors was very new to me, and that to me is like was the most like, wow, this is what I really liked, kind of thing. Whereas like a lot of the technical stuff, the blood and all that sort of stuff, that's fun also, but I mean, like you really don't have anything unless you kind of like have these people selling it, like, and I also really like doing the scene where the MRT worker, in the credits, he's credited as Kevin, although his name is never mentioned.
Right.
Kevin, when he dies at the hand of who. I enjoyed, like, just, we made such a mess with that scene. And that was, and that, it wasn't even like, there wasn't even really any technical, it's just like, okay, we have a compressor and we just have about, maybe 3 or 4 gallons of just like dark red fake blood and little chunks of like silicone that we're just gonna, spray him in the face with blood and just throw handfuls of silicone at him. And we just did that. And it seemed like we should have called cut, way before, but I just like, no, let's just keep doing it. Let's just keep spraying him and just keep that going. And like, and I knew that like having it go on for that long until everyone was just pretty much, until he's basically just exhausted from screaming, is like, that's going to give us that memorable shot. If it cuts too soon, it's not going to be memorable. You know what I mean? But if it just hanging on it for that long, that's what makes it magical. To me, that's what makes it magical.
Yeah, well, it definitely was. It was memorable, that's for sure. I'm watching it going, oh man.
Yeah, you have to make a mess when you're doing gore. I'm a strong believer that like you have to make a big mess, because it something in the brain fires that doesn't fire when you kind of do it digitally or whatever. A lot of time, like real stabbings, real like violence, like there's not as much. No, there's not, like, there's not as much blood, like I'm saying the opposite, right? Like, I mean, if it's just like for example, like knife wounds, if like they're without when the blood is not coming out, they just look like nothing, like they just look, but I mean, having like these big sort of engorged sort of wounds and stuff, like there are actually a couple scenes when I watch the film where I'm just like, that's too much, like that. it would be better if we did this more, if we kind of approach that a little more realistically in some places. In other places, I just feel like yeah, you know how it is. Like anything that like, I mean, you're a YouTube guy, like you probably watch some of your videos and you're just like, fuck, I wish we had done that a little different, or if we just had taken a little more time to do this, or if I just had considered a little more. So you run into stuff that you're kind of just angry at, but at the same time, no, like literally no one else in the world gives a fuck about it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep. They aren't going to notice, but you notice because you were so close to it. So
yeah. So the best thing that you can do is just not look. Just stop watching.
What's new for you? What's coming up? Anything coming up on deck? You got any projects coming up you want to that you can talk about? Or
I mean, I could talk about them, but I don't want to, because it's one of those things where it's like deliver big, promise little, you know?
Yep.
Like,
nope. I completely understand. Do they have a place where they could follow your stuff?
Sure.
Update.
Just call me. Just call me on the phone. Like my name's Rob Jabbaz, ROBJABBAZ, and that's my handle on Twitter and also on Instagram. And with Instagram, I tend to like sort of post, like personal work, like animation stuff little things that I do sometimes. And also I post a lot of sadness news about the sadness of what we're doing. And then with Twitter, I mostly just retweet stuff.
Sure.
So I guess maybe Instagram is if you want to know kind of what I'm up to. And then Twitter is just good also just for news and stuff, especially regarding like films that I'm making, announcements and things.
Actually, you brought up the animation, and I meant to ask you. You actually work one of your animated works into the film of the sadness.
Yeah,
I read it's the one on the TV, correct? Is it that old one? In all honesty, when I first saw that, I'm like, oh, it looks like he found some some classic animated film that they included in here. But when I read that was I thought that looked great. What made you want to move from animation to live action? Was it just something you wanted to try, or because that animation was great? Like I said, it looked like it was from another period, so it was very impressive.
Yeah, it's the objective or the goal with me, like from early on, is just like telling stories, like just you want to tell a story, you want to something, characters and elicit emotions from an audience or whatever. And when you're broke or just sort of not in a position to like get financing because you have no reputation or nothing behind you, like, hey, I need blah 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 dollars, right? Like, why would I give that to you? Why would anyone give that to you? And so you have to kind of figure out a way to make stuff. And for me, it was, like you hear a lot of people like, you get all your friends together and you get like a camera and you make a film in your backyard. It's like, fuck that. That sounds stupid. So instead I just like, just started learning After Effects, and then later got into doing 3D stuff. And then sometimes you just kind of get caught up in it, or like it's your thing, like you just kind of take to a thing. And I just kind of got better at it. And then the animation stuff just kind of led to me being able to, get enough clout so that I was able to convince someone that I could make a live action film. And but so because at the end of the day, like there is more like credit given to like a live action film. For better or for worse, I love animation. I'm a big advocate for like more adult animation, like kind of moving into the future. And I think that there's some guys out there who are really championing that, but like it seems still like there's a little bit of time to go with that happening. I just saw like a thing about like the making of Fury Road.
Oh yeah.
And like George Miller, right?
Yeah, George Miller. Yep.
George Miller, he was saying that like, because he'd spent like over 10 years trying to get the fucking thing made.
Yeah.
And eventually he just decided like, okay, I'm just going to do this like as animation. And I was just like, oh, that would like, that's ridiculous. Like that's like, Jackie Chan Adventures. Like,
right.
Do you remember how there used to be like this Jackie Chan cartoon? And it's just like, the whole point of Jackie Chan is that he's doing stunts. And if you make like Jackie Chan, like the animated cartoon, then you're completely missing the point of why anyone would want to watch. Like, do you think that we want to watch a cartoon with Jackie Chan doing the like an English language cartoon with Jackie Chan doing the voiceover? Like, that's no one wants that at all. We want to see Jackie Chan getting, like hit
right
like by a helicopter. That's what we're here. So like, yeah, so that's what I mean. Like when I talk about live action having more credit, like there's there's a new Batman movie coming out, it's animated. Oh, okay, all right, I'll watch it, whatever. But if there's a new live action, I don't fucking give a shit about whatever Batman movie's coming out anymore. But you know what I'm saying though? Like
right.
Live action has more weight and more credit, and it matters more. Whether or not I like it, or not, that's just the truth of it, So
right, yeah. Live action always has more weight to it, and I've always appreciated Asian cinema because you have the actors actually usually doing 90%, 99% doing their own stunts in that. Like there was a movie I watched, Chocolate, which is a wonderful film, but they show the credits afterwards, and they show what actually they did through with the stunts and how people actually got seriously hurt while doing the stunts, including the actress. Right. But yeah, Chocolate was really an interesting film. But yeah, I always like seeing the actual performers doing the stunts because it gives more weight than, like you said, Jackie Chan's animation. Well, there's no threat here. He's not going to break a bone.
It's like that line in Seinfeld, like where it's like you're going to Idaho and all you're eating is carrots, like right. I want a potato, like I'm not here for that, that's not why I go to Jackie Chan to hear his voiceover work, It's ridiculous.
Did you see Spine of Night?
I did, yeah.
What'd you think of Spine of Night?
I thought it was great. I thought that those guys worked really hard on making that film. I think that they should be very, very proud because like they really created like a like a tangible kind of world. Right. Yeah. So yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Here, let me actually. Yeah, go on. Huh? Sorry.
It just felt more like a spiritual sequel to Heavy Metal than Heavy Metal 2000 in many ways.
I like Heavy Metal 2000, man.
Yeah.
Like I do. Like it's animation's trash, but like I don't know. I like the story. Like I actually just like the story of it. I think it's pretty awesome. But yeah, like those that's Morgan King, who is the mastermind behind the Spine of Night. And I mean the Exordium short that he made way back, that like I used to play that like all the time when my friends come over and be, look at this fucking thing, and it's like this, it's like I want more of this, The thing is though about Spine of Night is that they didn't really capture the thing I liked about Exordium was the music they used, and they didn't really catch that again. And and I talked to Morgan about that, and he was just like, we got the same guys to do it, and the stuff that they made, it just, they weren't getting that lightning in the bottle. So then we ended up getting with some other people that kind of got us to where we wanted to be. He's like, I mean, the thing is about like a project like that is like, I can't even imagine how it would be to be invested for like over like 8 years to 10 years on a thing, Yeah. It's like I don't know how I would stay objective. I like, after like year 5, how do I even know if the thing is even good anymore? Right. Like I would not even know. And also if anyone talked shit about it, I would want to fucking kill them. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's like because then it just, because if they say it's not that good, it's just like that's like, like in a decade of my life, like gone, put into this project, and you just coming up and just dismissing it. Like I would be sensitive about that shit.
Mhm.
So like that's just I don't know, like that. I like, to be honest, like I think about that project quite a lot, actually, to be honest. Like considering that, like you know, I mean, I saw that during the festival sort of circuit last year, and I still think about it, but mostly just about like just the like how the hell did those guys pull that all together, and how did they stay motivated and inspired to keep doing it. But they did it, they did it, and it worked out.
Yeah, I think it worked out well. It struck me because I'm a big fan of more mature animated films, Fire and Ice, the Bakshi stuff. I've watched a number of those. My dad introduced them to me far younger than I probably should have been watching some of them. But
you were watching Wizards and you were getting a boner from that fairy or whatever with the black hair and the big tits.
She did stick with me for a while. Let's just put it that way. But I always appreciate animation quite a bit, and so when I saw that you were also an animator, I wanted to touch on that because I know how much work, talking to some other folks who do art and that, how much work that is. And so I got a lot of respect when you can do it right. And so yeah, Spine of Night, heavy metal, we don't get it's just like with the Sadness though, it seemed to be scaled back. We used to, especially in the early, as they call aughts, get the extreme gore, graphic, violent type films, and then it kind of tapered off for a while. Do you see it maybe coming back? I mean, we get bits and pieces, but
it's like I'll tell you that well, I mean, like whatever sells, right? So I mean, maybe we'll another gory, like the Sadness, like maybe someone else will try. Thing is though, is that it's like quote unquote elevated horror is sort of like the shit that people seem to get excited about these days. And that just by virtue of kind of like what it is, it tends to be more like script driven, like or dialogue, character driven stuff. That kind of stuff is all in the script, like that. A script writer gets paid the same amount of money, like depending on sort of like the level of like clout or notoriety or whatever, like it's sort of tiered, right? And like if you have a movie that's sort of building its tension and building its characters and doing its thing sort of in ways that are not terribly cinematic, from my perspective, and more maybe like sort of theater, like theatrical, like theater in terms of like it's people talking and characters, and people sitting at tables and talking and tension building and whatever, like that kind of stuff. If you can kind of make things happen with that, that's cheaper than crazy special effects or big chase scenes or cars flipping over and stuff like that. So and that is what the name of the game is. The name of the game is a movie just came out in Taiwan called Jo, which means curse or incantation. And it's a found footage film, probably cost like, $500,000 or something, like cheap movie. And it's like a found footage sort of situation, and they and it just, something about it just struck a nerve with the local audience. Like this movie is not going to have any life outside of Taiwan. Like if anyone else watches it, they'll get it, like they'll understand it, but they're not going to connect with it because they don't have like the cultural moorings. So but here in Taiwan, I mean, $500,000, the last time I checked, it was already at like like 12 million or something. So it's like, wow, it's like 24 times the budget, right? But the thing is like and that's the game here. The game in doing local films is just kind of if you can make 4 times your budget back, like good for you, right? These guys made 24 times their budget back, so fucking good for them. But the thing is like, now that movie has proved itself to be successful, then the next the bunch of financiers who want to be in the or maybe even the same team are going to just be kind of like, hey, they only needed $500,000. They made this much money. How come you can't fucking do it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
It kind of hurts. It's that double-edged sword.
So it's just going to drives budgets down. This is actually why what happened with the Japanese horror explosion, like you had like Ring come out and all that shit, and it was great, and around the world everyone was just like, this is it. Japan is killing it. They're bringing a new dimension to horror and all this stuff. But then like as the movies as time goes on, they just keep trying to do it for cheaper and cheaper, and eventually it just fizzles out, and it's all due to economics, because people aren't making movies for their health. They're doing it to make money, and if there's always sort of a race to see who can do it for like the cheapest, and we saw that happen with like Thai movies too. I think the only country that like, and fuck, even it's a little different with Korea, because like you have like your Old Boys and your I Saw the Devil and Sympathy for Lady Vengeance and the whole Lady Vengeance movies and stuff. And then that really like hardcore stuff with like, sort of disturbing themes kind of, goes away, and then you start, and then you have things like Parasite kind of like, getting a lot of attention. Again, sort of like elevating, like, I mean, Parasite is, it was marketed like a horror film, but it really is not a horror film at all. It's just sort of this drama that has, it's fairly engaging and stuff. I don't know. Like I don't know that I fully got it, but I like can at least appreciate it. But the thing is now what Korea is putting out are these like shows that are based on like web comics and stuff, like Sweet Home and Squid Game and Hellbound and I think it's called We Are All Dead.
That just came out.
And they're big, like expensive, like well-made, well-financed productions, and so they're not cheaping out. They're not, but they are going in more of a mainstream kind of direction. They're doing sort of stuff that's like, they're doing stuff that's like action horror, so maybe they're on the right track, but definitely sort of this sort of race to who can kind of make the biggest sort of like net gain is like, and by lowering budgets. That seems to be kind of like the trend with the rest of Asia. Is from as far as I can see, and also even like sort of the independent horror game, like the outside of the studio system in the States, sort of is playing the same game too right now. But whatever, it's all good. We can still get movies made if we try.
You still get movies made that you try, and I'm very happy the sadness exists. Thank you very much for your time. And this has been a great conversation. I'd love to talk to you again when your next project comes up, because this is a lot of fun.
Cool, man. I'm around.
And The Sadness comes out May 12th on VOD platforms, I believe.
Yep. Well, on Shudder.
And on Shudder as well. So those of you who have Shudder, who rave about Shudder, now you're going to have something else to rave about. So
Shudder's good. I don't get paid by Shudder. But actually, no, I do get paid by Shudder.
You will,
But regardless, even if I didn't, I would be subscribed to Shudder, because Shudder actually is just like they have all the stuff that you would want them to have. I think the people who curate that they know what they're doing.
It's definitely being curated by fans, which is nice, because a lot of those genre channels aren't necessarily just grab whatever, but you can tell they're at least being a little. They do a wide variety of films, and they're being a little bit choosy on what they put on there. So for sure. But well, thank you very much, sir. And I guess have a good evening.
Bye-bye.